Hey, thanks for joining us for another round of Mums at the Table. It's your girl Fiona, here to talk all things good and not so good in the world of parenthood with these fabulous ladies I like to call the three wise women of MATT.
I'll take it.
Yes.
Probably the only time I'll get it.
Take it. Shona, good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Rachel.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Too.
How are you?
Good.
Excellent. Julie.
Hi, Fiona.
How are you feeling?
Great.
It's very good to see you, ladies. I feel like we haven't seen each other for a while.
Yeah,
And I just want to
you.
say compliments to Mums at the Table for the award that Mary Ellen, our stunning Mary Ellen, picked up. Props to you. Love your work, Lady Mel.
Emerging talent.
Yes. Now, coming up, we have a chat with sexologist and author Dr. Patricia Weerakoon, who is here to talk about the birds, bees and our big babies. Speaking of our big babies, have you asked your child what they wanted to be when they grew up? And should you? Stay tuned to find out why you shouldn't. Gia and Olive make vegetarian rolls and we have a winter cookbook giveaway. But first, the journey of adulting, or otherwise known as being an adult, may leave you fondly reminiscing on your youth or perhaps even regretting past decisions. In an online article in cupofjoe.com titled, "What Advice Would You Give Your Younger Self?" literary agent Brittany Bloom said her advice would be, do not overpluck your eyebrows because they don't grow back. Ladies, it's as simple as that.
True.
It is true. It is true. What advice would you tell yourself if you had the opportunity to go back?
Oh, look, I'd probably put the eyebrows aside.
Really?
Well, the aggro look is back now, so, you know, the thicker the better. apparently.
Monobrow almost, isn't it?
So that's it, it goes in and out. So how can you go back and tell yourself not to do that? Because, you know, whatever was old is new again. But look, I think one of the things I would tell myself is to not be afraid of failure, because I didn't give things a go because I was so scared I wouldn't do well or wouldn't succeed. But I look back and go, what rubbish. You know, if you'd had a go and if you'd failed, how much would you have learned? Because let's face it, I've failed a lot. I'm like, hey, I can learn something here. So I would, encourage myself to not be afraid of it, almost to put it on the agenda because you gain so much from it.
I think I tell myself to risk more, which is, you know, similar to you, and take whatever opportunities come and don't be scared that they're not going to work out. Because I are very analytical and I'll think, well, if I do this, this will happen. If I'll do that, that will happen. But that's not how life is. You do
think
this
too
and
much.
anything can happen.
Yeah.
You know, so I wish I'd risk more.
I wouldn't change anything.
Why
It's just
not?
so
I wouldn't.
perfect.
Why not though?
Because I'm so perfect. I am so far from perfect. I like where I am. I like what I've achieved in my life and where I'm going, and I just think God's put me on this journey for a reason. And if I go back and tell myself something different, I may not be the person that I am today.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy where I am. I think age gives you that you can give, that you can just allow yourself to be who you are. Yeah.
See, the hard thing is none of us can go back and tell ourselves that.
Thank goodness.
But we can tell our children.
Tell our kids. But the funny thing is I've spoken to lots of mums about this and everyone has a similar message, like don't sweat the small stuff, you know, try things, be opportunistic. But are we teaching our kids, because this is a message that we're all saying to ourselves, but everyone grows up and seems to have the same message. They want to go back and tell their younger selves.
I might have tried to tell myself, but I probably wouldn't have listened.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing that I would have told myself, though, is, you know, life will get tough sometimes, but in those toughest times is when you will feel God the most. So I think if I'd understood that when I was younger, going through those tough times wouldn't have been quite so bad.
I think
So,
that's so
but
important.
here's a thought.
Yes.
What happens if you went back in hindsight earlier? Like, instead of reflecting now in the last 30 years, what if you reflected, like, in 2-week batches or something like that? Would you?
In 2-week batches. I've been in Fiji underneath a coconut tree.
Well, in 2 weeks' time,
and
if
I
you
don't regret
reflect
a
back.
thing of it. In fact, I'm depressed to be back. So,
I think that's the benefit of being old.
Yeah.
You know, you've got that 30 years to look back.
Yeah, 2 weeks doesn't give that much perspective sometimes. Maybe widen the batches.
what about even as new mums? You know, we get told so much.
It
different
goes so
advice.
fast. Everyone tells you it goes so fast.
It does go so fast.
It
though.
does.
And now I find myself saying that to people with younger kids, but I know at the time, I'm like, you can tell me all you want that it goes fast, but it's feeling long.
Yeah.
And I just want to sleep.
Yeah. One of the best advice I think I think is to seek God in your worst days as you would in your good days. I think that's something that I wish I had done more of when I was younger. Look, thanks for sharing your truth, ladies. Now, the Bible shares many texts on wisdom, future and our youth, but one of my faves is in the book of Jeremiah 29:11, and it states, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Which brings us to our next topic on our future, or rather asking children about their future and what they want to be when they grow up. Whilst it may seem like a harmless question, which I think would encourage forward thinking in our youngsters, an article in the New York Times states that this question does disservice to children and forces them to define themselves in terms of work. Do you agree, Shona?
I knew you were going to
I know.
say
It's not like I can see you in my peripheral just shaking your head.
I'm like, you should be sitting down and having this discussion with your kids. It's like sex, drugs and career. They should be the three things
What?
that you start. Don't you butt in on me.
I've already rolled my eyes. I don't think you have to ask them. I don't think there's a problem asking them. What's the detriment in asking
That's
them?
the
There's
question.
no,
What does it
no
say?
problems.
Why
Have
is
you
it a problem?
asked it? Why is it a
What do
problem?
they- yeah.
It's a problem because you're teaching your child to define themselves by their job. So then they're learning that becoming a fireman or whatever it is who they are as a person,
And,
rather than looking at their attributes as
When you
being
say
firemen.
fireman,
Doing
though,
all of that.
Yeah, why
like
is that
who you want to
separate?
be, what do you want to change
what
in
is
the world?
your desire? Like I said to my boys when they were starting, probably about 9 or 10, when they were starting to think about, people had said to them, what do you want to be? And one said, I want to be an air flight, a pilot and da-da-da-da. Think about your passion. Think about the things that you love. And if you start doing that at a young enough age with your kids, then they're going to know what their desires and passions are and where they want to go.
Have some goals.
Have some
But
goals.
you're starting those questions off really small. What do you enjoy doing? What makes you happy? You're not saying what career are you working towards. Like you don't start with the hardest question when they're really young. You
I
start
do.
with small steps.
My girls are all going to be doctors. That's what we're teaching them.
I love it. I love it.
Apparently there's a problem with that. But I guess I'm guilty of it too, because I feel like growing up, we were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Whilst I don't know what I wanted to be then, I thought I wanted to be a flight attendant. and all
Yeah,
this.
we all wanted to
Set
be that.
goals for myself.
The interesting thing, though, is this question has been asked throughout history. Every kid's been asked this. And a long time ago, there weren't that many jobs to make an answer out of.
Right.
Whereas today, the plethora
Noodles.
of jobs is just, it's enormous. So you're asking the same question, but there's clearly a different answer.
So shouldn't that make it a reason to ask? So they're starting to think about these things?
Lots of people don't know what they want to do. And as I've said before, people change careers, so not just jobs, careers 5 to 7 times in their life. So to say, what do you want to be and define that box, I just find really off-putting. But if you want to ask it, I'm sure there's no problem. Like the kid's not going to turn out odd because
when
of it.
Aaron started his uni degree this year, and the thing they told him was you need to take electives in your decision making in your course so that you're training yourself for multiples of jobs, not just the lawyer or the doctor or the dentist or whatever you want to be. You need to take other electives so that you're employable.
That's helpful, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Like having all of those academics and all of those things doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a happy and successful life.
Oh, it better. I'm paying an awful lot here.
But don't they say that the jobs that we're training, that are the kids are
Yeah,
doing,
that's
aren't
what-
even
so you
going
can
to
ask
exist?
them what they want now, and that job may not exist.
But
So
it gives
is there
them
a point?
some sort of idea on where they're going to
Sure.
go.
But I think they're going to pick that up anyway.
Yeah.
Looking at
No.
mum and dad. Mum and dad go to work. They're going to get that that's something they're going to fall into one day.
Not everybody goes to work, and not every parent guides their children into careers or jobs or whatever they may be interested in.
And we are all different. Like everyone will come to that at their own time. Just because education says you need to come to that at the end of year 12 doesn't necessarily make it true, and it doesn't necessarily mean that's the best thing for you. Some of us take a while.
So you're
to
saying
get to
just
know
let
who
them
we are.
float through and they'll
Not
find
at all.
it.
Guidance is great, but to put that pressure on them from such a young age, I don't see the value in it.
With my girls, I think we talked about careers and various things along the way, but it took them a while to work out what they want to do. And I don't think, I think it's okay. My daughter was feeling like all her friends were getting on with their life and she didn't know what she was doing. She's found a job now that she's passionate about. She came home the other week and said, Mum, I would do this if they didn't pay me. You know, and I'm thinking, great, I'm so glad about that. It took her a while, but she got into something she's really passionate about rather than getting into something that she's not earlier on.
I know, but I think also as parents, we set the example for our children.
Yeah.
So whilst we're talking about, you know, encouraging them to have career goals and whatnot, I think also we need to teach them characteristics that encourage kindness, empathy, those
All of those,
things.
who they're gonna
And so
be.
that's what I think this article is
But
trying to drive.
can I just say, I think the most important thing is for kids to know who they are, be okay with they are, because then those decisions are going to be really good, credible, solid decisions.
Look, thanks, ladies. A wise woman, Maya Angelou, is quoted saying, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And now it's time to satisfy the hunger feels with Gia and Olive, who are making vegetarian rolls. Let's check it out.
Okay, so the kids are outside playing on the trampoline and I'm alone. They're having too much fun, so I'm going to do this one on my own. But if they were here, they love this. They love rolling up these summer spring rolls. That's what we're making. Summer rolls. So we've got, I'm going to just show you what I do. You can change it, you can put different stuff in it, but this is how I make it at home. The kids absolutely love it. As you can see, I've marinated some tofu that I've pre-made, and if you go to our website, it's mumsathetable.com. So if you go to that website, you can actually see our previous recipes, and the marinated tofu is really easy to make and it is delicious. So you can go and find that there. But I'm going to start. So you need warm water and you need your rice paper, and I'm going to put it in there, but they say just to leave it in for 30 seconds, well, just enough for it to start getting a little soft, but don't leave it there for too long. You don't want it to go too soft, okay? Okay, so mine will soften up as I go. And the first thing I put down, because it looks really nice when you roll it, is the herbs. And I'm using mint here. So some mint, and I put lots of it in it because I just love mint. So, and I'm gonna put the avocado on top. So avocado, delicious. Some avocado. Then I use this, you can use vermicelli noodles, rice noodles, but I actually use bean sprouts as my filling. And Shona, lovely Shona, did actually give us a little tip about how to keep your bean sprouts fresh. You put water, so you put them in a container and fill it up with water and keep them in there closed in the fridge. And she said they'll stay crispy and fresh. So I'm gonna try that today to see how that goes. So I put some of those on there, and then some cucumber. I put carrot, and I love using shallots, some shallots, fresh spring onions, shallots, delicious, and coriander. Now I like using a lot of coriander. Some people put an actual stem in there, like they'll put a stem of coriander. So I put carrot, I'll put some extra carrot, give it some colour, eh? Yum, okay, there we go. It's gonna be a bit big. Now I'm gonna put my tofu on the side of it, so on the edge of it. My tofu, the marinated tofu, and I'm gonna eat one now because it's so delicious. Yum. Okay, cool. Done. Now the trick with this is to fold the bottom half up first, so the one towards you, fold it over it, then fold in the edges. So it is sticky, but that's right. Oh, mine broke up, but that's okay because it saves it as you roll it around, it'll save it. So there you go. I've got a really nice, look at that. It's not your perfect ones like the ones you get at the Vietnamese restaurants or anything like that, but it tastes amazing. And so I just roll them. I put some satay sauce, which is also on our website. Look up Easy Satay Sauce. It is easy to make. You can use it for everything, plus these. So the kids dip it in, eat it, and it's delicious. Hope you enjoy them.
Now for more easy-to-make hearty recipes that will keep you feeling fuller for longer this winter, we're giving away copies of this Sanitarium cookbook. All you have to do is write into us with your name, postal ID, and the title of this recipe book, Winter Weeknights, and we will send it out to you for free. But to find out another way to beat that winter fatigue, we have Kendra in the studio catching up with Gia.
So, Kendra, what can we do or what can we eat to help fatigue?
Okay, so there's three main things you should remember. So remembering to have a protein, a complex carbohydrate, and a fat with every meal.
Okay.
So protein would be something like chicken, fish, eggs, tofu. You could use legumes as well, like black beans, lentils, soybeans. For a fat, you would use avocado, olive oil, maybe some nuts and seeds or some nut butters. And the complex carbohydrates, my favourites are brown rice and quinoa.
Is sweet potato a complex carbohydrate?
Yeah, so you could use sweet potato.
Perfect, because I love sweet potato. We just bake them in the oven for the week and we've got them in the fridge.
Oh, so yummy.
So that's great. So what would a breakfast look like? I'm just asking because a lot of women that are leaving home or going to work, what would sustain them?
Throughout the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could have some oats, which is a really nice carbohydrate, and you can combine it with either a full fat milk, or you might want to use almond milk or soy milk, and then you sprinkle on top some nuts and seeds so you get your fat and your protein. So that would make a really nice breakfast, and you can top it off with some fruit and you're getting some extra fibre and phytonutrients.
Perfect. So you've got your complex carbohydrates, you've got your fat in that, and you've got your protein.
Yes.
So what's the protein? Oh, from your nuts and seeds, I guess, if you're putting nuts and seeds on top. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, that makes it simple, because I think people need simple ideas to be able to understand how to help themselves to feel better. So that will help your energy, you're saying, because it lasts.
Yeah, so instead of dipping, because you're just having something with just carbs in it, for example, so you'll spike and then you'll dip, you'll be able to sustain that energy with the help of the fat and the complex carbohydrate.
Perfect. And then no nibbling in between.
Perhaps.
So what do you nibble in between if you have to?
If you have to, you might want to add something like protein and a carbohydrate. So you might add like some egg with some hummus.
Yep, okay. Or even veggie and hummus if you just...
Or some veggies and some nuts.
Perfect, so something small. But usually you wouldn't want to because you'll be full enough to...
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you. It's always a pleasure chatting to you and learning more.
Thanks for having me, Gia.
No problem. We'll see you next time.
But now, you may recall our next guest, as she's no stranger to mums at the table and brings a wealth of knowledge, facts and thought-provoking insight and advice. As a best-selling author of Teen Sex by the Book, she's a therapist, sexologist and supermum. Dr. Patricia Weerakoon, welcome to Mums at the Table.
Great to be with you.
It's good to have you back, actually. The thing I wanted to ask you was, in a sex-driven society, we're inundated with sex. How come in Christian circles it feels like it's taboo to talk about it? I actually feel prudish talking about it now.
Well, you know, the point is it's actually not taboo. It's just that for too long, we've allowed the world to take over and kind of treat it like God is this cosmic killjoy who only words are just don't do it. While actually the Bible has the best word on sex. Its book ended with marriage, Genesis and Revelation, Jesus coming back for his bride. And right in the middle is 8 chapters of erotic lovemaking between husband and wife, the Song of Songs. I mean, what could be more sexy than that? We have the best message ever in sex. Let's get it out there. Which is what you're doing.
Yes, that's why we've got you here, to bring it out, to get it out. How early should we be talking to kids about sex? Because I know these days, it seems like our kids are more informed from a younger age.
Well, more informed or more exposed?
More exposed.
It's a very interesting question you ask, because the point is, when you say how early should we start, it's never too early. Because as you said, we live in this sexualized society, and today our primary schoolers are being exposed to sexual issues. I mean, they're seeing porn at an increasingly lower age. So it's never too early. Firstly, always use the right words when talking about genitals. Even when kids are 1 and 2 years old. Look, boys are born with penis and scrotum, and girls have vagina and vulva. Use the right words, not cutesy words. And that can be done really early.
So what's wrong with using the cutesy words? Because some mothers do it. So what's wrong with it?
It's not that it's wrong, but when you use the correct words, you give your kids a language. And this is really important, especially today, for at least 2 reasons. One is that when they get into primary school, however careful you are, they may be exposed to pornography. And if they are exposed to something, they have a language to come and tell you what they saw. And the other sad thing is that there could be some aspect of, some kind of abusive or grooming behavior. And again, your kids have a language to come and talk to you about it. At least for those two reasons, please give your kids the right words.
I guess as mums, we're really worried that they won't talk to us and they'll go somewhere else to find their information. If they see something that makes them uncomfortable, sometimes they're the last, we're the last people they'll feel. How can we stop doing that? How can we encourage our children to come and speak to us?
See, the earlier you start opening the conversation, all the research shows, the myth, if I talk to my kids early, they're going to run out and experiment. Wrong. All the research shows that's not so. If I don't talk to them, then they're somehow going to stay innocent and they will come to me when they have problems. Wrong. If you don't open the conversation, they won't come to you. They'll go to Dr. Google or to one of their friends or to pornography. If you start the conversation early, you are that trustworthy person.
Okay, so let's get practical. How would you start that conversation? Because you've talked about using the right words, and that's a really good start, but then you get to kids who are older. How would you actually talk about it in that next phase?
Okay, the next phase is that we say that when your kids get to primary school, you need to have had the talk. This is why we actually wrote a book called Birds and Bees by the Book. We recommend it for primary school, parents, grandparents to read with children. And this is an opening. It's like a picture book which talks about, genitals, families, what's happening in the brain, and also about gender and pornography and sexuality. It's so important that we do all this discussion. Do it early when they get to primary school. Use resources, but you are the resource. Husband, wife, share. That show your children what
it's
good
really
relationship
interesting that you
is.
talk about conversation, because I know for me, one of the hardest conversations to have is the sex conversation with your husband. So how can we do that? Because sex and money are one of the hardest things to talk about in a marriage. So how can we do that in a non-threatening environment?
You see, communication is probably the most intimate thing in a marriage. You need to talk. It seems so stupid to say that, but actually it's very important that couples remember that. Intimacy is important. And when we talk about a couple and intimacy, communication is important, far more important than actually jumping into bed and having sex.
Well, say that again, slowly.
Communication is more important than actually having sex. But the point is, how do you actually get to, as a couple, talking? And the important thing is to remember that when you want this kind of really serious conversation, rather than tell your husband, you did this or you haven't done this, it's to say, I feel upset. I'm feeling sad about this. When you take on that I feel, then your spouse, being a male with a Y chromosome, wants to fix it. And therefore, you're actually giving him a role as carer, which is the biblical role of the husband caring for you.
Yeah. After you've had children, sometimes the last thing you feel like is developing that sex life again. And how do you keep that zing in your marriage? How do you, you just want to sleep. You
want to catch up on sleep.
Yeah. Again, it's important to remember that when we think sex, we tend to think intercourse. Wrong. We think intimacy. Intimacy goes everything from spiritual intimacy. If you're reading the Bible and praying with your spouse, that is intimacy. Through to actually talking, through to cuddles at the kitchen sink, good place to cuddle, and kisses, and then finally to intercourse. You see, we need to remember that. And so after getting married, after having babies, you can concentrate on the kisses and the cuddles and just allowing your husband the space to help you with the baby. That's sexy in itself.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I need to understand it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever loved my husband more when I saw him grow into a wonderful father. And I think that bonds you in a really special way that you don't have before that.
I have to agree. Like, I know with my own partner, once I had the twins, the amount of help that he had to do for me in recovery, I actually, the love did grow and it was deeper. But I think also with marriages, according to research, there's like 60% of marriages break down because of infidelity. Are we just too quick to jump ship? Like, we have commitment issues these days. Like, what's going wrong? What's going on with our marriages here?
It's actually a huge topic, but I'll kind of give you the quickie version. One is we live in a society that says live by your desires. So it's my selfish self-gratification.
If you want it, it's fine.
That's right. If you no longer please me, I need to go where I get my desires and my pleasures. So as you said, we are too easily break out of commitment. But as Christians, we are in a covenant committed relationship. And so we need to recognize that even when that sort of initial dopey feelings of falling in love are gone, you need to work on a relationship. And that loving is an action.
It's a choice.
It's the other focused choice of loving. And that's what a committed covenant relationship. Why is it called naked and no shame? Nakedness, yeah, you take your clothes off, but it's being naked at a brain level, at an emotional level. And no shame is that total trust.
And being vulnerable.
And being vulnerable in a place of trust. And that is what Christian marriage is.
I love before that you were saying, you were talking about all those levels of intimacy, I guess those levels of sex, whereas we seem to be living in a world and a culture that just has only captured one portion of that, and we forget that there's so much more that needs to be addressed and worked on. And we need to sort of show that to our kids as well.
You said something earlier too that I resonated with me, something about how we have to focus on the other person. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, because the best sex is when two people are together and really each one is saying to the other, asking the other, how can I make this the best for you? And if two people are actually looking and asking, how can I make this the best for you? Look, both are going to have the best time ever. And that's about other-focused rather than looking at this self-focused, self-gratification.
Yeah. How can we model good parenting behaviour for our children so as they grow up, they'll have a healthy sex life?
Well, the best thing is for them to see you as husband and wife, being close and loving, not necessarily having sex, because that too doesn't matter. It's a teachable moment, but
That'd be
maybe not at that moment. Maybe not at that moment, but let them see you loving each other. That intimacy is important. More sex is caught rather than taught, and we need to remember that.
Yeah.
And I think also, as couples, having that intimacy, what tips do you have in order for us to continue having that intimacy, sexual intimacy, when we've been in a marriage for a long time?
Yeah, when you've been in marriage for a long time, it kind of can get very ho-hum. So what I say is, think back to the times when you felt that zing. And kind of make a list of it. So it doesn't even need to be something very expensive or long time kind of thing, but just think of some fun things and do them again, and it brings back that dopamine-driven excitement that you felt. So bring back the zing.
Thanks so much, Dr. Patricia. You're a wealth of wisdom. Thank you for hanging out with us, ladies. Thank you for the chat. God bless you all.
bless everyone.
And you at home, thanks for hanging out. Don't forget you can hit us up on our socials. We'd love to hear from you. Be sure to share, like and subscribe if you're watching online, because there's always more room for you at the table. Until next time, God bless.